Sculpting body parts. That's hard. That's what they say. Well, I don't think that sculpting the hand is that hard if you use your own hand as a model. Hello there everybody and welcome to this video. I am going to use stoneware clay and some of my own handmade tools and yes, my right hand as a model. Now I'm left-handed, so that's why I use my right hand as a model. If you are right-handed, it's easier to use your left hand and build with the free hand, the right hand. The first thing I do is of course wedge the clay, but after that I start building this slab, the same thickness as my own hand. I use a little bit of water to smoothen out, and I try not to get any cracks in the clay. When it's big enough so that my hand actually fits on the piece of clay, I use a needle tool and try to keep it as straight as possible and draw the lines around my own hand. I first draw the lines. After that, I cut through the whole piece of clay. And as you can see, the clay is almost the same thickness as my fingers. The clay I use is a stoneware clay, and it's called 11PYG. It's white when it's burnt, and I think that's perfect for this purpose. It's now time for me to cut through the whole piece of clay, and again I try to keep the needle tool as straight as possible. As you can see, I only use a chipwood board as a surface because I think that's easier than having some piece of cloth. It's easy to get the extra pieces of clay out. So far, so good. Next up, I will try to smoothen out the edges a little bit. After that, I have to remove a little bit of the extra clay, especially on the fingertips, and try to get the natural look. So, as you can see in the picture, I always have my right hand beside the clay to check how it actually looks. You can't actually see it, but I'm looking at my real hand and then trying to copy it to the piece of clay. You don't need that many fancy tools for this project. Some wooden tools, maybe some wooden sticks, and if you have these metal tools like this one, it's of course really good to scrape away extra clay with. But you can actually use a knife, a spoon, or a piece of wood instead. I try to get all the big wrinkles, the knuckles, and the nails to look exactly as on my own hand. That's a little bit tricky, of course, but just give it a lot of time. It's not that hard. If you have a turntable to put this hand on, it's much easier also to look at, for instance, the fingertips. So you can actually turn your hand around to see that everything looks perfect. There's a lot of scraping and smoothing out when you make a hand. You can actually make a foot exactly the same way. Of course, it's harder to have your foot beside you when you make this, but yes, you can do it anyway. And as you can see, little by little, it starts looking more and more realistic and natural. I still think that this hand is kind of flat. So I want it more to look like from the Addams family. You know, the hand, is it called lurch or something, maybe? So I cut a little piece to get the arm so it actually stands up a little bit from the table. I score and I put some slip on, and it's important that you attach this piece really good. I also measure my own arm to see that it's the same thickness. And once again, I use a wooden tool to secure the arm to the hand. I use a thread to cut the edge, the top of the arm, so I get a flat space. This way it looks really nice. I use a little bit of water again to try to refine all the details before I go to the real small scratches and so on my hand. And as I said, if you have a turntable and you don't make a movie, then it's much easier to also check on your fingertips that they look great. So, a lot of small details. Start with the bigger ones and go to the smaller and smaller details. This way you get a perfect hand. It's now time to work on the knuckles and make some nails. So I use my tool again and try to bend my fingers the right way, in the right position. If your clay is too wet, give it a few hours and it's easier when you start making the small details, because then the grooves will not be that deep. I will not show you the final result because I am not going to glaze this hand. when I burn it in the kiln, it's just going to turn white as chalk, and I like that really much. Now, one thing that I have to do before I put it in the kiln and before it's too dry is actually use a small wooden stick and make a hole in the thickest part. So in this case, I just put a small hole from the inside of the hand almost the whole way through the arm. If you think that this looks hard, you can always practice. Just do the same thing flat on a piece of paper and a pencil and try to draw all the lines. This way you can practice how to make your hand first flat and then after that in 3D. This silicone rubber tip pen is perfect for this. The grooves are smooth and it's really easy to use it. So that's one of my favorite tools. When this hand dries enough, I will of course work a little bit underneath the fingers too. It's a little bit too wet right now, so if I start working on the fingers, the hand will just lose its shape. So a few hours drying and you can do the really, really fine lines. Now this is my favorite part of this working process. All the small details, it's almost therapeutic when you paint them on. As you can see, this hand is almost done. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please drop me a line. If you like my videos, you can always subscribe. And if you don't like them, please tell me why in that case. I really appreciate all the comments and all the lines and letters that I receive from you guys. So thank you very much. Now it's time for this hand to dry a little bit, and I will do the last finishing touches to it. Was it hard? No, not really. I hope you get inspired and make your own. So, thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.